Hey, family, welcome to episode 15 of my enrolled agent career. Today, I have a guest, and we're going all the way out to the East Coast. This guest has a practice located in Greensboro, North Carolina. They also are the president of the Eden Family Wealth Group. They're a real estate investor. And on top of all of that, they're married with children. So, we are going to talk about their journey as an enrolled agent, balancing business and family, and just what it looks like right now to be an EA in 2025. So, without any further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Joshua Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Timalyn, for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be on your show. As I told you when we first started out, you were one of the first faces I've seen in the EA community. So it's exciting for me, almost like a fan here, to actually be on your show a few years later. So thank you.
No problem. It is most definitely my privilege to have you because I can always respect somebody out in the space, like actually educating people. Me being a writer myself, seeing you put out articles that aren't chat GPT is always awesome. So when I kept seeing you come up and we had the opportunity to meet last year in DC, I was like, I need to reach out to Joshua to see if he'll come on to share his story. So I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation.
So the first question that I ask people when they come on the show is, how did you find out about the enrolled designation and what made you decide to sit for the exam?
Absolutely. So my story is a bit unorthodox. My entrepreneurial story journey kind of began with real estate investing back in 2018. I started purchasing single family homes here in Greensboro. At this time, I worked for a company called Fidelity. My background is in finance. But I was working for a company called Fidelity, and I was, trying to build for my retirement. So my approach was to buy rental properties. The idea was this concept of OPM, other people's money, and the idea is to capture the largest bill in a person's home, which is generally their mortgage or their rent. So I
Mhm.
kind of was able to do quick numbers there. How many homes will I need at what rate to get, to my retirement number? In the process of that, I stumbled upon other issues I never seen coming, most notably tax problems. I read a book by a podcast called Bigger Podcast, and it was a real estate tax strategies. And that book told me just about what I needed to know, which was that I knew nothing about taxes and that it was going to cost me a lot of money and a lot of time in my investing journey if I didn't figure it out quick. So this was no small decision for me because at this time I had two kids. I had two kids at this point, and I'm deciding. I made the executive decision to quit my job with Fidelity to go take a position with the IRS. It was a huge pay cut. It was significantly less money, but once I worked, I tried to. At this point, I already had done my MBA. I was not interested in going back to school. That wasn't even an option for me, and I had enough career experience to where I understood that most of my education came from hands-on experience. So versus going back to school, I decided to take the pay cut and go work for the IRS. And at the IRS, I worked at the Tax Assistance Center, which was a front-facing position, and it was like my EA boot camp, if you will, because I was seeing 30 to 40 clients a day, in a
Wow.
government position. Yeah, and it was way overworked. The training was pretty, I don't want to knock the federal government, but the training was what you'd expect, death by PowerPoint, old PowerPoints and things like that. So they kind of put you on the floor, not really knowing much. So it's a sink or swim environment. So, but 6, 7 months in, you almost haven't seen a tax problem. You don't see any tax problems anymore that you haven't seen before. Because you're just seeing such a high volume of issues. And then it was there that I came across EAs. EAs would be coming in representing their clients. And I would sometimes see those EAs tax returns and be like, wait, hold on. Why are they're doing the same job I'm doing? Way less volume, making way more money than me. And at this point, I was already, an entrepreneur in terms of my rental properties. So I was looking for that license or that credential that would allow me to step out into the entrepreneurial space and command a level of income that would allow me to continue investing in the rental properties. And once I seen that combination, the IRS couldn't keep me. I was at the IRS for probably about 21 months before I was out of there. And I immediately went for the EA. I didn't even start my tax practice until I finished the EA license. So I left the IRS in July. I had my license by October, and it wasn't
Oh,
necessarily that
wow.
it was just an obsessive kind of study, but it was also the
Uh-huh.
mindset of I didn't at the time even really process that I could start the practice without a license. I almost took it as it was an essential element, and because I was quitting my job, I had multiple kids. To me, there was a race to get the license so that I can get back on a path of making income, and been loving it ever since.
Wow. So there's a lot for me to unpack there. When you're talking about the OPM and the real estate, it made me think of my husband. Because OPM, yeah, let's let's definitely tap into other people's money. I didn't know that you work for the IRS, so that was news to me. I'm still trying to process, and like your executive decision to leave Fidelity and these leaps. Then that part of me as a wife was like, oh man,
It was
my
a
chest
what?
is hurting. My chest is hurting.
Absolutely.
So while you were at the IRS, 30 to 40 clients a day is crazy work.
Absolutely.
But I like how you brought up, I think you said 6 to 7 months, there was no problem that you hadn't seen. Because that's one of the things people ask me, well, how long do I need to wait before I feel comfortable? And I'm like, it's not really a timeline, it's a quantity thing. Like if you jump out there, sink or swim.
Absolutely.
And that's literally what the IRS did to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it
What?
was. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say that they did do that, but it really worked out because the level of confidence it gave me when my first client walked into my doors, and then I heard, the same stuff I was hearing at the IRS, I immediately felt that I was in my comfort zone. And I would just add one other thing. I also did VITA to help with my confidence right before I started my own practice. So I
Okay.
started going to the library and volunteering just to get the one-on-one interaction before I was fully representing my brand. It just helped me psychologically feel confident that I could stand in front of a taxpayer and withstand the onslaught of questions.
Yeah, and being on the other side of it, because I don't think people realize, like, you could do representation and never prepare a tax return, but you learn the other side of it, like how do we get to this problem? For the listeners who may not be familiar, do you mind explaining like what VITA is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Center. And it's a program that they allow low income taxpayers to do they allow low income taxpayers to have their tax preparation done for free. And when I was working at the IRS, it was one of the primary places we sent taxpayers who came in need issues. People that work inside of the IRS are not allowed to represent the taxpayer because it's a conflict of interest. We're not allowed to do tax returns or things like that. So even for the most basic things, we have to refer a taxpayer somewhere, and that place is generally a VITA. But there's also people there that are people who are aspiring tax professionals. Most of the volunteers are aspiring tax professionals or current tax professionals just sort of looking to increase their skills or give back in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Yeah, that is one of the things that I recommend people do. Like, it's like, oh, I can't find anywhere to work. And of course, you still got to eat. You might not be able to work in a tax firm right away, but to get hands on experience with preparing like individual returns, VITA is definitely a good place to get experience and give back at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what do you think it was for you that caused the disconnect that you couldn't start your firm until after you passed the exam? Because I get that a lot. I'll have people reach out and be like, okay, like I'm going to come be in your mentorship, but I got to pass the exam first. And I was like, I think it depends on the person,
Sure.
but you can start preparing before you pass the exam. So, what was that for you?
I think it was just my own just being intimidated by the market, and wanting to be able to answer the question positively when someone asked if I was licensed. I was aware that I technically could get out there and start practicing, but I didn't feel confident that I could, and I felt like I didn't know what I didn't know. And what I got from the EA license, as grueling as that studying was, especially in a short period of time, it gave me a lot of confidence. Like if the EA license gave me nothing else, with every past exam, I felt more confident in my own abilities. Absolutely, right? It's an exam, so it has that energy, but there's a method to the madness. By the end of the exam, you do know a lot more than you did prior to. So it wasn't that I felt like I couldn't. It was more of just my brand. I wanted to come on strong. I wanted my brand to come on strong. I felt like I built a good reputation in the city from my experience with the IRS and Fidelity and my investing and all these things. And I knew that when I first came out, it was going to matter how my presentation was, and I wanted to come correct from day one.
Got it. I most definitely can respect that. It's just always funny to me when people realize, because they don't have as much experience as you did, like I can only imagine working with the IRS in that capacity. But they pass the EA exam and they're like, this didn't teach me anything about representation. And I'm like, no, you just mean it shows you're sufficient in studying and
And,
researching.
and I did go straight into the NTPI pretty much the month after I finished my license. So I was really trying. I wasn't trying to fast track, but I was in a rush to be competent, if that makes sense. So I went
Yeah.
straight from the EA license, jumped right into the NTPI program, and it was because of that question you just asked right there. I got done with the EA, and I was like, I know nothing about representation, and that's how I found the NTPI. Um, so that helped a lot. That helped a lot.
Yeah, got you. So, with that, again, just because some people, I have folks tuning in that may be on a culinary path, maybe a trucker, we just explain like what NTPI is for us.
Absolutely. So the National Tax Practice Institute, a fellowship program, is a training program that teaches enrolled agents about the practice of representation. And it gets really down to the meat of it and really shows you a detailed approach to not only how to approach a case, but how to solve one and where to go when 99% of us are going to have problems eventually, where to go when you need help, which is probably the most important element to it. Now, I will say, just as a new EA, I sped right through the program. Not, I didn't realize how important the networking piece would be. But the NTPI happened to have, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time they offered all levels online. So me being who I was at that, new to the field, I took all three levels in a matter of about 3 months because I was so thirsty for the information. Meanwhile, I've been at EA for 6 months now. I'm already in TPI, so it didn't quite make sense because now I see how the process actually works. You fly out, you have a graduation. Like I missed all of that because I was in a rush to get the information. But it's also nice that it is available. If you do have that ambition and you're serious about representation, then it's powerful. I would just say I found out quickly that I did not like representation. I hate representation, and it's the thing that I avoid the most in any client. Now I don't even take any representation clients anymore.
That's interesting. So, tell me this. So, you talked about the experience you got with the IRS. You jumped right in. I always tell people I'm a self proclaimed tax nerd, lifetime learner. So, I love, and it looks like you were fine with coming to that conclusion. You went through NTPI to find out you don't like representation, but you still educated yourself on how
Absolutely.
to do it, how thorough it was. What does your practice look like now since you don't do any representation work or in the beginning? Because if you did all that in the beginning, did you ever do representation work?
So I did do representation at first, both audits and collections, and the audits were fine. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they were fine. Like collections, it's more of the collections people that just gave me a headache, especially because the other element of my firm is tax strategy, and this is usually more of the ambitious type of people that are really much more on top of their paperwork and everything else, on top of life. And so having such a huge contrast between the two different departments, the representation side and the tax strategy side, became frustrating. And I just found that I enjoyed my tax strategy clients when the phone would ring. And when a representation client phone would ring, it didn't come with the same, emotional response. So I figured I was early enough in my practice to kind of, niche down. Early on, you're concerned about the money, right? So at that representation and the fees that they could charge attracts everyone. But I found that in the tax strategy side, I could do similar numbers with people that I preferred to work with. So that's sort of what I focused my practice on. I also niched down immediately to real estate when I first launched my brand. I called my firm a real estate firm. I went around to all the real estate companies from Keller Williams to really you name it. I've been to it when it comes to real estate agencies. and I give workshops, free workshops, and I would just go all the way around. My first year in business, I did maybe about 15 to 20 in-person workshops, and that's how I launched the
Oh,
brand into
wow.
being real estate specific. The goal, I was always looking for real estate investors because my focus on taxes was about real estate investing, because I was really being selfish and I was trying to figure out, well, if I can apply this for myself, then I know I can apply for other people. So that kind of just connected those dots. But that helped a lot. Niching down and then focusing on the real estate space helped a lot. But eventually, you know, the when you first started out in your marketing, you have an idea of what you want your client to be. You have an idea of who your client is. But then after your marketing and the clients started coming in and you relook at your clients, that it may look different than what you originally set out to attract. So I ended up setting out to attract mainly real estate investors, but I mainly attracted high income earners, people around 200, 250K families who were looking to do something aggressive with it on the tax strategy side. So then I sort of switched from being a straight real estate investing firm to focusing on overall high net worth individuals tax strategy, period. And that's essentially all I do now. We do tax strategy, tax preparation, but we only do tax preparation for clients who belong to the firm and the tax strategy membership. The tax strategy membership is the only way into the firm. But if you are a tax strategy member, then tax prep, representation, all that stuff is free of charge.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that it would be the natural progression, like what you're interested in is what you're going to go after.
Absolutely.
Um, you said you dropped a few gems there. I hope people go back and listen if they missed it. You talked about you did, was it 15 in person events? Technology is amazing until it's not.
Right.
It, like, the amount of people you can reach is awesome, but having the personal touch and being in the room with somebody builds know, like, and trust so much faster. How did you, and you don't have to go into a lot of detail here. You don't have to give us all the tea, your secret
I don't
strategy,
mind.
right?
I do not mind.
How did you determine, like, hey, I need to actually go meet these people where they're at versus just sitting behind LinkedIn and sending friend requests and messages?
Absolutely. Impatience. In my first year, you expect, I wanted my first year to be a huge year. And I know that I listened to 1,000 podcasts and everyone told me that's not the case. If you survive your first year, you did a good job, right? But I have, at this point, a growing family, and my mindset was that I had to build the firm. I was doing all the other marketing. I was doing social media marketing. I was doing blog posts. I wasn't doing podcasts, coming soon. But I was, for the most part, doing most of the marketing that I thought would work. I had been paid for like magazine ads and things like that, and it just wasn't coming in fast enough. So I still have time on my hands. All my marketing, for the most part, is being put on autopilot because you write enough articles, you have them all posted out for the year, and I had free time, and I thought, well, I'm not busy with clients, then I need to be busy. And one of the ways I figured I could be busy, while that marketing is happening in the background, is to just stay in front of people, stay in front of people. And we came out of that COVID era, and when I worked for Fidelity, I worked at home. So then coming into the COVID area, there was almost like a time where people like became socially reclusive. And I
Yeah.
was no different. It was at a certain point, it was like, well, now it's like been a while since I've been in the audience of people, standing in front of someone, in front of an audience, having to talk. Like, it was a real fear that I had to get over. But once I started doing it and the clients started trickling in, then there was no longer an option, because now when I'm sitting at home, my phone's not ringing. I know what I needed to do to get it to ring. And that's how that kind of, until I didn't need to do that anymore, I had planned to continue to do that marketing, forever.
I love it. I say it, but I hope they hear you saying it, and maybe it'll hit them. So people like, I don't know how to get clients. I don't know. And I'm like, it's the same way. Like, you meet people, like, you have to go outside and introduce yourself. Because social media, yes, we can get clients from it, but it more so helps us stay top of mind for people, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But now you reached a group of 15 that may come follow you, but they're going to help the information that you gave. spread further than just social media.
Absolutely.
Um, so for this, did you do like similar presentations at each one?
I did. So I had for my realtor. I'll give you guys I guess hopefully my realtor present. People don't see this presentation, but it's okay. So for the realtors, I would focus my presentation on them, right? So let's say I'd kick off the presentation starting at something along the lines of, I'm on my way to see you guys today, and I go into ChatGPT and I say how much is the average realtor paying taxes, and then ChatGPT gives me this wild number. I tell them that number, and then that's how I essentially maybe start the presentation off. Um, for the most part, all of the presentations I started that way, if that's the audience, right? The immediate connecting with the audience. From there, it would depend on what kind of feedback I got. But for the most part, realtors specifically are focused on that Schedule C. So I would kind of just go through the expense category. Now I'm not sure I'm giving you too much details, but that's essentially how I would start and kind of give that basic information, explain self-employment tax, explain everything they need to know when to move over into the S corp, reasonable compensation, things like that. And I learned that they weren't too interested in the stake. They were more interested in being confident that you know what you're talking about. So I left a lot of details out because I knew that would just put them to sleep anyway. But the idea is that if you're doing nothing, you're wrong. And that's who I'm here to see. Everyone else who has their own EA or CPA, all right, I'm not talking to you anyway. I'm not interested in stealing other people's clients. I'm looking for
Yeah.
the one who has never heard that these opportunities exist. And it was very effective.
Yeah, I love that is very similar to what I did. It helped that when I was building, I had a 3-year-old that was cute. Everybody thought was cute. Sometimes I'd take with me if it wasn't a preschool day. But I think I hope this is again going to help somebody here because I didn't say it. You said it. I didn't pay Joshua. You've said almost exactly what I said verbatim. I'm like, you don't have to create a different presentation for everybody. Like, yeah, the first page, like, change the company name, please. Do that. But I cannot think of a real estate broker's office that I went to where I didn't get a tax prep and rep client because it was a focus on the audience like, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. And again, the Schedule C, like this only has to be tweaked a little bit.
Absolutely.
When I was doing it, Chat GPT wasn't a thing yet. But again, like hitting them with that, like, oh my goodness, am I doing this right? And then your confidence level seems like it turned out pretty well for you.
It absolutely did, but it wasn't one of those things. And on the confidence side, it wasn't one of those things that was natural. My wife and I were doing these presentations together. By the way, she was opening for all these presentations for me. But an advantage that I would say is that we rehearsed that presentation all the way through, maybe 20, 25 times before I gave it for the first time. By the time I gave the presentation for the very first time, I had studied it. I had like practiced it so many times that I knew even if I was having an anxiety attack on stage, I knew this like a song. Like I knew this presentation like a song, and that helped
Yeah.
a lot with the confidence. It helped a lot with the confidence because you're giving it that many times, even though you're going to be facing that anxiety. For those that have anxiety, like I did, as far as stage fright, preparation is key. It really is.
That's awesome that your wife was there to kind of, because I can imagine that being like kind of calm as well. Like, this is a person queuing me up who knows me better than anybody else. So I can do this now. I think people too, they're like, oh, I need to do a YouTube channel. I need to. And I'm like, if you want to be perfect on YouTube, you need to go give it 15 times in person to
Absolutely.
somebody else. Um, and it helps you, like you said, depending on the audience, like you're fielding questions so you know, like, what could I add to that I didn't cover? And you know, you have an audience of people that want to be there to see you, that
Absolutely.
didn't just stumble upon it.
And they're usually not tax experts. So it's not like you're being quizzed from other EAs and CPAs and people who are trying to trip you up. They're usually a genuine taxpayer with a genuine question. And for the most part, if you're licensed, they're not going to throw much at you that you don't know.
Yeah. So right now, you still are an investor, president of the Eden Family Wealth Group. What does it look like? Because I heard you say a membership. You only do tax prep for people that you do tax planning for.
Correct.
Do you do any type of, because I think you just said high net worth, do you have any businesses that you do bookkeeping or any other services for?
I do not do bookkeeping. I do not do any bookkeeping services. As of now, I've been strictly focused on tax strategy. I'm getting enough requests for the bookkeeping category to consider doing outsourced bookkeeping. As far as me ever sitting down doing bookkeeping, never. Right? I do my own books, and that stresses me out. Also sit on the. I'm also the treasurer for the North Carolina Society of Enrolled Agents, and even their books again stress me out. So bookkeeping really isn't my thing. But I do see it being a lucrative piece of the business. A lot of clients that I do tax strategy for are doing their bookkeeping somewhere else, and even their payroll somewhere else. So if I kind of brought all that together, it would be lucrative. But for the most part, I prefer to focus on tax strategy. Now, the Eden Family Wealth Group is really still the business itself has been established, but we're currently undergoing our request for state registration, which is huge because we will be the only independently owned, Black owned investment advisory firm in Greensboro. And I believe we're only one of four in the entire state of North Carolina. So that's going to be a huge thing as far as what that's bringing to the market and bringing to our brand. But the way that came about is the tax strategy, right? So my firm focusing on tax strategy, we're kind of limited on the tax side to focusing on expense reporting and different strategic tax positions that can be taken, but we don't necessarily are able to really get a hold of the retirement element of whatever the client situation is. Usually they have a 401k, an IRA, maybe a 529B plan, something like that. So Eden Family Wealth Group is almost actually kind of born to complement the tax strategy clients because most of my tax strategy clients go to a different CFP. And I said, wait. If I can create a system where I can consult in real estate, consult on taxes, and you can talk to me about all your retirement planning, and in fact, I can manage the retirement assets for you. I figured I might be onto something. So I'm very excited about Eden Family Wealth Group. Eden is my youngest daughter's name. So my
Oh,
idea is
okay.
trying to keep, all the companies in some way related to the family and keeping the family name going. A legacy is just something that, I used to write about a lot before I started writing about taxes, just legacy and generational wealth building. So it's awesome to find a career where I can do that and get paid for helping other people do the same thing. It's like, it's a beautiful marriage.
That's awesome. So you mentioned your wife helped you with rehearsing the presentations, with queuing you up when you were giving them in person. We got the Eden Family Group, namesake business of your youngest daughter. How do you balance having a young family and all of your career endeavors?
Absolutely. Well, I have a very structured approach in terms of how we pull this off. All four of my children are homeschooled, so we are forced to have an incredibly structured approach. My wife probably carries more weight in the business than I do, so I'm not in any way trying to make it sound like I'm working and she's taking care of it. It's not that. We have to balance this thing on a different level. And the way we do it is we have family quarter meetings. We do this 4 times a year. And these quarter meetings are kind of set up to how we run an S Corp, right? Where every quarter we're sitting down having a conversation about where the family business is, but really we structure the entire family as a part of that piece of the pie. To just give it out really quickly, it would be a human capital, intellectual capital, social capital, and financial capital are the topics of conversation at every one of these quarter meetings. And the human capital element is where we get very strategic in organizing the children's time. My daughter, for example, right now is off to camp 9 to 3 o'clock. That's strategic on our part because we have things to do in this element. And with the I guess long story short, a lot of planning and just staying ahead of the day, staying ahead. Because we had 4 children on purpose, right? When we had a one, we wanted another, and when we had two, we wanted another, and when we had three, we said we just see one more person missing in the photo. So we didn't like accidentally end up with 4 children, right? I'm not, we did this on purpose, and I have been actively building my version of generational wealth, and the most important element to me in that is my human capital. So we plan it. We plan it. There's no easy way around it. It's a tough situation, and I mean it's incredibly tough. I have 2 boys always ripping and running through the house, and not that they're the only problem, but that energy is different. That energy is different for sure. But we just work it out, and it really helps that my wife and I we're always on the same page, and that we're both running this business. She's actually studying for her EA license as we speak because
Awesome.
she's going to be taking a more I guess you could say a more senior role, but pretty much the main role inside the tax business as I have to dive into Family Wealth Group full time.
Cool. So there are so many questions I could go with there, but you said that you wrote a lot about legacy before you start writing about taxes. Do you have articles that kind of cover um I can't think of all the capital you just said, the human capital?
Yes, I absolutely do. So I have articles. I don't remember how I titled them, but they're on my LinkedIn if you go back far enough. I also have
Okay.
they're also in my blog post. But yeah, this is a topic that's very important to me. And as a professional in this space, the vast majority of my clients are from my same community, and it gives me a different level of responsibility when it comes to how I go about providing the best service that I possibly can. Well, I feel like I'm taking that somewhere different. What was your question again?
I was asking if you had articles about I said I couldn't remember all the capital, but because you said you had written about legacy, like I had questions there, but I was like, he's probably already covered this in some other content that we can share with the listeners.
Absolutely, yes, yes. So what I cover for the most part is family wealth, and that's really the I guess you could say the meat and bones of all three of my businesses, from the real estate investing firm, the tax strategy firm, and of course the investment advisory firm. It's kind of an umbrella to create and establish and maintain family wealth. That's the whole idea behind it. So I used to release articles focusing specifically on that, but it was less appealing than my tax strategy approach. My tax strategy marketing has been my most successful topic I've ever spoken about. So it's great for business, but it's also I was doing these type of posts before I had a license or a business to market, and nobody cared. But having a business to market makes this you have a few more reads on those articles. So maybe I should go back to writing about that.
Most definitely, especially in times of economic uncertainty, and like you mentioned before, coming from a different community, underserved community who's not up to the same. I know success depends on how you define it, but behind, just speaking candidly, like behind when it comes to generational wealth and building legacy, I think those topics are super important right now. What I will make sure that we do for our listeners and for myself, we'll get the link to the blog and make sure that's in the show notes for anybody else that's listening that may be interested as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm glad I asked that because I didn't know you had all that out there, Joshua. See,
I
learn something
appreciate
new
it.
every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you have shared, you have a lot going on right now. So, again, I want to respect your time. Thank you to your wife and children and clients for letting us borrow you for a little bit. In your journey as an EA, if there is one thing that you could do over again, what would that one thing be?
I would have started taking clients immediately. I wouldn't say wasted. I wouldn't have waited to get my license before I started taking clients. It did help a lot with my confidence, but truth be told, it didn't help as much as taking care of that first client did. All right, taking care of that first, getting that out of the way is going to do things to your confidence that the license won't even do. Just being able to know they feel confident that you can sit in front of a client and handle a basic tax problem, I think is key, and it will help. It would start help the revenue start coming a little faster. So if I could go back, that's
Yeah.
probably about the only thing I would have done differently is dive right in.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I can already see like a part two and a half. I don't know if it'd be two and a half. And say we might have to bring your wife on after she passes
Absolutely.
to share her journey as well. She's been watching you as an EA, and here she comes, like you said, to take that senior role on.
Yeah, absolutely. And my wife does not come from a tax background. So in undergrad, I was an accounting and finance major. And I come from
Okay.
the finance background, which is not necessarily accounting, but it's not too far off. Whereas my wife was actually a social worker. So she comes from a background that had nothing to do with taxes. And it was, our business becoming as lucrative as it did that made her say, like, wait, hold on, like I'm gonna jump on this bandwagon. And obviously the idea was to create a sustainable business that would allow her to continue to provide
I've lost your sound.
I think I muted I don't know how I muted myself, but I was on mute on that.
You
Where
said your wife coming from a social work background, saw how lucrative it was, and was like, "Wait a minute."
Absolutely, and jumped right into the firm, full speed ahead. I was already tasking her. I needed help when you first start off. If you have someone that can help you, you're going to be asking for help. So I was kind of already asking for small things here and there. But once the revenue started to come in, and we kind of shifted our plan to focus specifically on tax strategy, yeah, she got pretty excited. And then of course me too, because the power of a family business can't be understated. If you can get a household and you get a unit that's all working together in tandem, the sky's really the limit. And if you found a niche, you found a license, something that allows you to command a certain level of income on the marketplace, you really have two major pieces to the pie that have you in a pretty good start. A pretty good start.
Yeah, I think that in a way that may be unexpected, her background in social work. I don't know if you guys tag team homeschooling, like all of that will come in to add a different element of being able to connect with people. So my mom has a social work background, and then for first 7 years of school, I was actually homeschooled. So
Wow.
it's completely being able to connect with people on a different level where they're at. I think it'll definitely add a different element to the business for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll say we'll do a part two and then a Mrs. Scott episode will be different. Hear things from her journey and perspective.
Absolutely.
Um, if people wanted to connect with you, um, how can they do that online and find your blog as well if you want them to connect something that's not social media?
Sure. My website is joshuascottassociates.com, and I have my blog is attached to my website. On Instagram, I'm NC Tax Guy, and then on LinkedIn, Joshua E. Scott.
And for the people watching, we do have that scrolling across the screen. For the people listening, that is linked in the show notes below. Special thanks again, Joshua, for coming and sharing your story. If you are listening to this episode and you are interested in starting your own EA firm, then I want to invite you to join my email list. You can find it at www.americasfavoriteea.com, where you can get your How to Start an EA Firm checklist, as well as join the free community. I believe we're right under 200 members now of people who are all interested in starting their own EA firm and maybe in those beginning stages that need help with marketing and getting their brand out there. I will see you all next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the next episode. Bye now.